your preferred language, and then it all came together as an HTML, and then it was spit out to the client, and he had to deal with it. When you build such an application, you collect a lot of stuff in your JS and in your CSS folders, because it's all pretty important, and you have jQuery as a basis often in older applications, and then you have, oh yeah, I need this dropdown, but it has to be animated, so let's get this jQuery UI thing, and then, oh, the carousel doesn't really work like I want, but there's this third-party library, hey, there's a jQuery for that, so let's add this to the part. And in the end, you have like 10 jQuery things or other JavaScripts. Let's add some other language as well, why not? And everything together has to be put into your application. You have like 20 scripts, script parts in your website, and then you have to all deliver this to either your local Apache or whatever to start this, to see your program actually working, or you, even worse, you have to use FTP or something to put it up on a dev server and see it in progress there, and it's all a pain. The development cycle is very slow. The load time is slow because you have all these JavaScripts and CSS calls internally. Of course, if you are a really smart developer, you use something like the compressor from Yahoo. So you put all the JavaScripts in one file and all the CSS in one file, and because it's a pain to call this command, you use a nice shell script making this for you every time you change something. Yeah, that's even better, right? So I hated this, and it wasn't really fun, and of course I had to deal with it. And but I wanted to progress. I wanted to grow with this, and yeah, welcome to the future. So if you're still here, I have good news for you. So all these funny icons mean something according to my speaker notes. So let's see. We have all this is a part of what Angular makes Angular cool for me. And this is the reason why I really love the whole thing. So let's start with that. We have, in Angular, we have controllers. We have two-way data binding. We have services that are internally called factories. We have routes. We have view templates. We have directives and filters. And on the tools section, we have Yo, which is short for Yeoman. We have Grunt and we have Bower. So who knows everything that's here? Okay, you can go now. But let's go on. So let's start with the tools, because as I said, this is what makes the whole package awesome. Yeoman is something that works on top of the tools that I just mentioned here, and is basically a scaffolding thing. It helps you to quickly generate stuff that is always the same. So it helps you to avoid writing the same code over and over. For example, create a typical Angular application is done with these three commands. Basically, it's just this, but in order to make it in one particular directory, you first have to do this. Yeah, you just say, and you could even leave out the app part, because this is the default. So if you don't do anything, yo Angular, and yo, you have your application. So, and this would give you these awesome features out of the box for your app. So without even doing anything, you just have to do, you have the whole scaffolded app, so all directories in the right place. There are already some built-in files, for example, for the build process. You have, if you want to, automatic compilation of CoffeeScript and Compass. You have automatic lint, so you see when you screw up in your files. The built-in preview server with auto-reload is just a breeze. So you start your server, I come to this in a sec, and every time you change something in your files that are being watched according to your build file, the page reloads automatically. And also all the tasks you implement there, like linting, like compressing and so on, it's all being done automatically. And this is just great for getting stuff done quickly. Image automatization, we had this in a talk of Michael just before. There are cloud services for that, but if you can do this locally as well, why not? I mean, it all depends on your use case. And yeah, package management. How great is this? Like, no manual download anymore. Yeah, you saw this download jQuery button. You have this on every library you can think of. You don't have to care about this anymore. You just say, I want jQuery in 1.10 and define this in the package, and it's already downloaded, and it's always in this. And if you, for example, if you say, I want the jQuery UI in this version, jQuery UI will know that it needs jQuery for execution, so it will define jQuery as a dependency automatically and downloads it too. So if you don't know what dependencies we have, there's no problem because you just need to know what you need, and all the rest has been already defined by the developers that defined the package you want to download. So that's awesome. And built-in unit testing as well. With Phantom.js, with its a headless version of Chromium. So it's being executed without a window, so to say, or without visual output of the browser, but it executes the JavaScript, and you can run through your code as you would do in Selenium, for example. So Grunt, the next thing, is a build tool, and it allows you to define any sorts of tests. So you can also copy stuff from X to B. You can rename stuff. You can do all crazy things, but these are defined by default when you do the Yo Angular thing. Yeah. You have a grunt file. This is here. All the tasks are being defined here. And a few things that are very useful is executing your tests, executing the preview server, which runs locally, and building your application, which means you can define what, for example, maybe it's easier to do development in the non-minified version, but if you do the minification for the distribution, of course, the size of the download will be lower, so that makes sense. But you are not limited to the basic tasks. You can do all crazy kinds of things. And there are a big number of plugins to enhance the capabilities of Grunt even more. So I already touched this topic, Bower. Bower is finally a package manager that you can use for web applications. So I don't know, there are different things you know probably from Rails. There are the gem files you can define. In other, we have a Maven, for example, in the Java world. And Bower helps us to do this only for the front end. You don't need anything else but JavaScript. It all relies heavily on the whole infrastructure Node.js brought to us. So most of the packages you are using are NPM packages, and but they are being handled in the background. You don't really need to know. The only thing is you have to install Node.js, but you don't need to run your server in the end on Node. It's just for convenience because it's all being written in JavaScript and thus can be executed by a browser or by a shell easily. So so there's a package.json, and there are all dependencies. You can also define dependencies that are only useful for your development cycle. For example, some things you need for testing. so this stuff doesn't end up in your production JavaScript. So let's come to some cool features Angular offers to us. We have expressions, so we can use these handlebars to calculate. How crazy cool is this? Very advanced techniques. It's very easy to do a bit of JavaScript inside these brackets that gets executed and interpreted and put out. The same is this, which is a variable coming from a controller. I'm speaking about this in a sec later, but you can see it's really easy to put out data you have in your controller. Data binding is also pretty cool. We use this for, so who doesn't know really what data binding is? Okay, just really quickly then. Data binding helps you, you have data in a model, so user dot something, name, description, email, and so on, and you have text somewhere and ways to change this. For example, in this example, we have a text area that is being tied to user description. So once this gets executed, we see the list of users being executed over and over. I come to the ngRepeat later. And the description has been put out here. But we have a text area too. And this ties the description to the model. So when I change the content of this text area and change it from very friendly to very bad, it will change here also, because Angular is clever enough to figure out that these are the exact same fields. So whenever the model changes, the reflection, the output of this model will be changed automatically everywhere where it occurs. So this is the two-way. One way is I can put out data, and the other way is I can change the output again. So it's a cycle. Directives. So we had this ngRepeat before in our code. This is a very easy thing to put out things in a very structured manner. So for example, when I want to render a list of users, I have always this list and this content. So I only say, okay, repeat this list as many users are in this list of users. How they come there, I can explain later. Yeah, it will be repeated as often as I have users. Obviously, I just had 2 users. And we see the result below. And that's the ngRepeat directive. A directive, as you can see, is a way to define a certain behavior on a. You can do this for classes. You can do this for attributes. So you can change the behavior of certain things. So normally this LE would get just being printed out once, but with a directive, use all the users there, so it gets automatically repeated. Another directive which comes in very handy is the show directive. It tests the predicate that's being defined here. For example, is admin, and only if this is true, it prints out the user. And hey, what do you know? I'm an admin, and Bob wasn't. So in the end, we see only my name popping up in the list. And a bit more complicated is the NgSwitch, but as always, because it's a bit more complicated, it's more powerful and useful. So bear with me. In the ngRepeat, I also define that here is a switch defined on the field user.name. And what I define is when this property has the value Stefan Hoth, then use the super cool admin PNG. And if it's anything else but Stefan Hoth, then use the normal boring user PNG. And as you can see, I'm all suited up and Bob isn't. So this works as well. Yes?
One question. Could you replace Stefan Hoth with user.isadmin?
That's not a value really. You would have, I think, I didn't, but I guess you could just use true here and use there is admin. Yes, it's just a boring example. I could made up something like image sun and rain or something. It has nothing to do with the admin status.
Okay.
Yeah, it's maybe a bit confusing. Okay, thank you for this. I need to change this then. Yes, it doesn't have to have something to do with the admin. It's just a comparison of this attribute with this value. You could also do several switch whens in between. So I could test for Sabine and for whatever. And when this hits, then this will be used. And only if nothing else hits, then the default. So it's a if, else, and so on, until this is an else. Okay. Going on. Controllers. So, yeah, now we see some code. What does this do? So we define a controller which is called main control. Oops, I'm sorry. So we define a controller, and Angular works with dependency injection. This means all the things that you see here in the function as an argument is automatically introduced into the controller by name, which is a problem with minification. That's why you can define the names before this in a weird array. I just left it out because it's a bit more harder to read for newbies. So I just made it like this. If you don't minify your code, this works perfectly. So let's see. So the scope is so-called the data object that is being passed automatically to your view. So whenever you want to deliver some data, for example, we have here the chapter name and a Google Plus link. Put this in the scope, and you can access this by handlebars Google Plus link, handlebars chapter name in your view. So this is how the data gets into your view. And we see here a config object. I left this also out because it's just way too long. This is just a static object containing some values that I use here. Because I use it more than once, I define it on top. We can look it up on GitHub later on how the whole thing looks. Yeah, and that's basically it. The controller does some stuff, constructs some data internally, can also query data. We come to this in a second. But in general, this is where you do the thing for the main control, for example. How we wire this all together, it comes later. We just need some, yeah? You don't know? Okay. So the whole project that I built, most of the code is copied from a project. The generator I used for that was not the Yo Angular, but instead Yo Boomerang. So it's a fork of this. It's actually a generator for building your GDG website in a second, for example. So that's why we have a chapter name, for example. So I could do the GDG Berlin website in, let's say, 10 seconds, because I just say, yo, Boomerang, and then it asks me, what's your name of your chapter, what's your Google Plus page number, and some other things, and the website is done. Yes, you're right. it's not on there. You first define how your app object is called via an Angular call. Let me show you this later on, okay? Otherwise it gets confusing because I have to change tabs and stuff. So let's go on. We here use the Angular model for services. Services are kind of like the way to access data in a more structured way. This could just be a static array of JSON, which you could also just define here. It all depends on how complex your stuff is going to be. If you just see, okay, I have 3 things I want to put in a list, put it here. Don't make it more complicated than it has to be. But if you really, for example, want to query a JSON data source like here, it makes more sense to encapsulate this into a certain service. In this particular example, we call this myawesomeapp.service. And the service is being called JSON data. And what I'm doing here, since the dependency injection works by name, I can just say my module, my awesome app controllers, the main controller, just needs the JSON data I just defined here, and I can use it inside the scope to fill objects via query. So what query does, it's a factory, so a service, and automatically it loads this from the server and returns the results into objects, and I, for example, can log them, which is not really useful for a web app, but for development, of course, you can at least see what happens. You would do more stuff in your view, of course, with the ops object. Yeah. The next thing, very important, roots. So here's actually it is here defined. So that was above. You define a variable that contains your app, for example, your example, and you can split your code in different modules if you want to. A module is like a part of an app, but often enough it's a whole app. In this example, it's called GDG Boomerang, and it uses the sanitize function and a module called UI Bootstrap, which is an Angular port from Bootstrap, Twitter Bootstrap. And then you config some roots, and the roots handle the URLs you want to use. So whenever I call, so it's really easy to read actually. About, when or the user calls about, use this template and send the data to this controller to handle the whole thing. When I go to news, use this template and let the news controller handle the data. And if none of this is matching, just for security, so to say, I redirect to about, so I make sure no cases go unhandled. So this is my default, and this will be my welcome page then, because I make sure this is being handled. So yeah, so that way you can define as many roots as you want. You can, of course, handle the same different roots with the same controller if you want to. You can handle this, different roots with the same view if you want to, and with different controllers. So you can mix it all together how you need it and how you like it, depending on how complex your idea is. Coming to your view templates. In this example, I iterate over a list of photos called photo stack, and each photo gets put out in a list, and we see a link to the photo, have a class thumbnail attached to it, put in the source and in the description for the thing and title attribute. And the ng source is kind of important in the way that you don't have flashing of unstyled content. So although there's the ng dash before it, it gets removed once the source has been loaded. So you only see this object until the when the image is loaded. So you don't see all the empty broken images before. So this is kind of an improvement of, and it looks much nicer in the when you use the whole thing. So let's go on. A really nice thing also is filters. So imagine I have an input. It's almost invisible up here. So just a little input I call search text. And then I have a table of search results. And in this table, I output all the friends I have. Obviously, there was no space for me to have friends, so it's only the source code. And we define a filter search text here. As long as this input is empty, nothing really will happen. So I'll just see all the friends that are put in friends as a table row. But as soon as I start typing in this input and the model registers that the content has changed, also the binding works that the filter starts filtering the list and only outputs the friends that match parts of the search text. You can define your own filters which work differently. For example, make it a negative filter. So you want to throw out everyone that starts with ST or something like that. Or you can make it a regex filter or something. But the general thing is it's a substring filter and only matches will be displayed. So there are, as soon as you start typing, some rows of this list disappear, and you say only the people that match the description. And once you remove the content from search text, the list is full again. So what do we have here? So you saw all the filters, views, controllers, and so on. And of course, you could look it up how you write it and start with that. Actually, the tutorial on the website and the docs in general are pretty great. But it's easier that way. So you just use yo again. And instead just putting in yo Angular, you could say, I want a root. And I call it my root. And then, or root 66 if you want to. And then you get two files. And there you go. The root should be already included in your general apps.js where you define the roots. And you have only to edit the controller and the view to your liking. Also, you can just create a controller, for example, named user. Filters, directives, a service, and a lot more. But I didn't want to go through all the things that you can create. I just wanted to show you that it's pretty easy to use this generator. But just one warning, I don't know how bleeding edge you want to go. Currently, there are release candidates for Angular 1.2, but it's not yet released for stable. So the generator produces 1.07 or something by default. If you need features that are in 1.2, since you're on the beginner talk, you probably don't know these features, so you're not missing it. So you can only start with the yo thing before you do something else. And now I wanted to take you quickly into a real-life example you might know. because the website devfestberlin.de has been generated with the fork of the Yo Angular thing, and it's also a GitHub project. So if you're interested in how this thing looks in the real world, it's like that. So if the user is devfest-berlin, and there's only one repo right now, which is this one. So and if you're interested, here's the generator as well, and there's a README how to start with this. Obviously, you're not all wanting to create your GDG website, so probably you start with the normal Angular one. But just in case you want to try it. So I wanted to show you 2 or 3 things here before we go. So, for example, the Bower components. We have package.json, and my eyesight is not that good, so let me...
It's the last one.
Yeah, it's just let me duplicate the screen now. And now at some point, and it's better if I check this first. Yeah, I have a few screens open right now. So this is the generator. Where is it? Oh, I have it. Yes. No. Damn it. Okay. Let's take this. Now you come up, sure. So the package.json, yeah, we have Joshua, the creator of the original template in here, but also, it's pretty small. Oh, that's better. So you see, mostly we have only dev dependencies because everything else is just being built on normal Angular. And he also was a bit lazy, I must say, actually, because he could have integrated this with the Angular as well, with Bower, but instead the Angular stuff is in libs and I think in JS. Let me see. No, in JS. But let's have a look at the only file that is like custom JavaScript. The whole app, the whole website of devfest-berlin is defined in this. These, how many lines do we have here? Only 238. That's okay, I guess, for such an important website. So let's see. At first, we say, hey, we have an app here, Angular, and our app is called GDG Boomerang internally, and because we are very lazy with typing, we call it Boomerang in the code. We could have called it the same. I recommend actually to call it the same to not being confused. With this setup, we actually can see the roots a bit better. It reads a bit nicer, and you see we have different handles, and for everything we put in a different controller just to encapsulate it quite nicely. Then we have a service, but this service doesn't connect to the website or downloads any JSON. It just provides a gigantic JSON object with a few config variables, for example, for our team website, what our G+ IDs are, and some other data you can see on the website. The next thing is the main control. The main controller is if I call devfest, not AT, but Berlin, you see I'm immediately on about. And this is being handled here because this is very boring. Most is static code. I only configure chapter name, G+ link, the event link, and something which is only useful for the mobile version of this, that the nav is collapsed, because if I close this enough, I have the navigation and it shouldn't be open like this. because you wouldn't see anything on your mobile phone if the whole menu is open like this. So so basically here we have the chapter name. Chapter name is being used here and here. So normally there would be GDG Berlin or something, but I misused it for DevFest. We have some descriptions which are being used from the config. And for example, the G+ links are being constructed that are used here in the main navigation. Also, additionally, we have the About controller that handles part of the site. And what we do here is, so maybe what's interesting with the site. This site has no real backend. So the backend is Google Plus at most. For example, the big cover is being loaded via JSONP directly from the website, from the Google Plus API. So I'm asking, hey, for this particular Google Plus page, what is the cover image? I get the cover image, and if I get it, I put it into the scope to make it accessible in the view, and then boom, there we have it. The rest is just static HTML, so there's nothing much into it. The news controller, which is a bit longer, because when you ask for a certain feed of a page, you have different types of posts, and these have to be handled differently. So you have posts where a photo is attached, you have posts where an event is attached, or just normal posts. And as you can see, there are different views, view possibilities, and we obviously post some pictures on our DevFest site. So this is a live poll from our DevFest G+ page. So we don't have to do anything to keep this content up to date, because as long as we post stuff on Google Plus in our page, this is always up to date. The same with the photos. But this way, we pull different albums from a page. So the same as you can have albums in your Google Plus profile, pages can create albums. And what we do is create different albums and just say, okay, pull these albums, and so we can display them, and so we have a bit better handle on which photos we see under the Photos tab. So we just upload some good selection of photos to this album, and then we can automatically see them here without anything. So no FTPing or uploading or anything. It's just done. These are static links, and the only thing that is quite neat, I don't know if you used this. You saw the array of team IDs, and these are sequential calls to the Google Plus API telling, hey, give me some info about this user, Benjamin Weiss, and give me the photo and the name and the link to his profile. And oh, they don't have the vanity URL yet. Oh, interesting. Because you can see, no, you can't see this. It's super dark. The Google Plus issued last week the plus something URLs, and the API, of course, delivers the correct links. The first few didn't get the name yet, but most of the others already got them. So anyway, we have a pretty easy list. Maybe I just show the content, the view template for this list. Might be the easiest to understand. It all fits on one page. That's very convenient. So I used the data for Google Plus link again. This was in the header, and then we have the team list. And before I show this template, I should show how it's being polled again. Makes more sense. Sorry for that. It was the last one. So it's called contact control. You can call your controllers to your liking, and what we just do is going through a loop of the team IDs, and the only thing I had to do here, because we are more than 5 people and Google Plus limits the connections to 5 per second, I had to use timeout to slow it down a bit. That's why the photos popped up after each other. I use a timeout of 200 milliseconds, which makes up 5 per second, per 1 second. And yeah, I'm looping through this as long as we have new team IDs, getting the info about the member of the team, and pushing this the new data into an array called team, and then I can iterate over this in the view in contact. So I just say member and team, and then I can query the subpart of that here, the URL and the name and so on. So I guess that's almost it. Let me find my presentation. Yes, I guess that's it, yes. For a short introduction into the magical world of Angular. Soma, dürfte ich dich kurz bitten? So, are there any questions before we run out? There. Remember the disclaimer.
Loud. As this is a framework from Google, I thought they would do the scraping correctly, because it seems to be impossible to scrape this or crawl. Because if you search for DevFest Berlin, you don't find DevFest Berlin. If you directly search for the URL, you see handlebar brackets.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't put any effort in making this actually visible, because we communicated the URL directly, and I only put this together in like 3 hours on Wednesday. So I even surprised my co-organizers of this event with the page, because I thought, well, maybe it's useful to have one. And it was a good experiment for me to try out the generator. So I'm not sure if it's not being picked up because it's relatively young, or if it's really that broken.
But as I said, if I directly search for the URL, I find handlebar brackets, so not the real values.
I'm probably sure I do something not right there. So, as I said, there's no real backend, and all being generated dynamically. I probably can enhance this. There might be someone in the audience already can answer this. Yeah, behind you.
So Yeoman is basically also a wrapper for Grunt and Bowser, or you have to use them separately?
No. If you, I think if you install the package for Grunt, it's grunt.js, I think, .org or something. I guess the dependencies pull Bower and Grunt as well. So then you have it installed, and if you use Yo, they also execute Grunt task from the start. So I guess it's all being integrated.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeoman basically gives you default configuration for Grunt and Bower, so that's why.
Yeah, and you of course can build your own generators, like I already said. You don't have to use the Angular one. There's something else called just Yo Web App, for example, that asks you, do you want to use Twitter Bootstrap, and do you want this, and do you want require JS and stuff like that. So, and there, I guess there are generators for every major library or framework already. So if you build the same app over and over, like for example, I can imagine for PhoneGap, you have the same structure of an app for that all the time. So it makes total sense to build your own flavor of a generator and then use this to be quicker in the end. Of course, you have to build the generator first, but then you can, yeah.
Can you tell us what the dollar syntax does exactly? You have dollar scope, dollar HTTP, and so on.
You mean?
Yes.
So the dependency injection works really by parsing this and replacing or injecting the right, for example, the scope object into this parameter. So if you interchange the config and scope, it will still work because it parses the position of this. It's really a very enhanced dependency injection. And that's why if it's not called $scope, it won't find that there should be the scope. But there's a different way to write this. Let me quickly find this to make sure. So somewhere. What? Oh, the matrix is coming. Yeah, I'll check to. Is it getting worse? No. Oh, it's just dying. Good thing we're almost done. So, that's, yeah, exactly here. Okay. Interesting. So the dark gray is not really useful. Okay. Can I? I don't know. IntelliJ. What's the shortcut for making the... No? Caps lock. Caps lock, no. Font size. Change font size with mouse wheel. Yeah, I tried. The problem is I don't have a mouse wheel really here. And it seems to be not working. Okay, font size. Is this exciting? Oh, 13. 13. Oh, it's the font size of my... Yeah, that's very useful.
On the left, editor?
Here, editor, yeah. Let's parse my 500 fonts and then... Oh, okay. No, show only one. I can't. No. Obviously, I'm not capable of. You're not allowed to use it. No. Maybe I have to buy a different license. What? Changes in and then learn something new. Thank you. So, the death was not used. So when you when you minimize minify the code, it's all being scope is being replaced with A, and the next is replaced with to make it really small. So we would have here A and B, which the dependency injection parser would not recognize as scope and root runs. To make it available and understandable, you have to first say in this, in this array, hey, the parameter is actually called scope and root params. So I first run into this error by just like you would, minify everything, and then the Angular app was broken because it doesn't recognize the intelligent replacement thingy anymore. But by adding this array around it, it works. Well, here, I guess it's still JavaScript and some intelligent language. So you have to deal with it.
Yeah, I mean if you use the dollar operator that resolves it within strings too?
No, it's really the word scope. It's the dollar scope is something the dependency injector looks for. If you, there are some default things you can include, and some are like Angular modules or add-ons, so to say, you can include, and then you can use them as, for example, $HTTP, $mock, or whatever.
Okay, so it's predefined.
It's predefined in the language and the framework or in the additional module. Yeah.
And inject your own things as well, but the one with Angular start with $. Your own things are not supposed to.
Yeah, for example, the config thing you saw in the other example, it has no $. It could have done it, but you shouldn't because it breaks sometimes if you choose the same name by accident. Okay. So, questions? No? Thank you.